Workshop meeting of Thursday, May 24th, 2012. First item for discussion is SP1. City Manager.
SP1 is the quarterly financial report. Ms. Barbara Gonzalez, our Director of Finance, is here to give that report, and she will get situated and get right up here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Marty has a copy of that presentation for you. She's passing it out right now. Thank you, Marty. Marty's our Assistant Director of Finance. I think many of you are familiar with Marty. She does a fantastic job. She guides our budget, has been here for a long time. We have a great team in finance. They all help do many of the things in finance. We'll get started. All right. The financial review, we're going to make this short and sweet, but just to give you a little bit of information, we do provide monthly detail that will go before you every month, and that is through the City Manager's office, and it is on our website. So there is the monthly detail and executive report that makes up this report. So if you are interested in some of the detail that will be provided to you once we show you this report, however, whatever the guidance is through the City Manager's office that you give to him. I will get started in this report. The major funds that we have here at the City of Killeen are made up of the general fund. The airport fund is made up of Fort Hood and Skylark, solid waste, water and sewer and drainage, and we'll get started with the general fund. The general fund, currently we're doing fairly well, and we did bring the comprehensive annual financial report that was approved or reviewed by our City Council and Mayor in the previous month. Currently, we're at 67.4% of the budget in our revenues. In the prior year, we were at 61.9% of the revenues. Therefore, we're doing fairly well. And we do have a lot more detail that makes up that fund.
If I could just add real quick, Ms. Gonzalez, this is the second quarter.
Oh, yes, sir. This is the second quarter. I apologize.
That's okay. January through March.
This is January through March, and this is a cumulative information. And once again, we do have the detail where the monthly reports are provided out there on the website, and we will have those links provided to you also. Obviously, the general fund is made up of the two major funds. The two major revenues that do make up the general fund revenues are your sales tax and your property tax and various other revenues. But currently, we are doing fairly well. There are other revenues, and we could go into detail, but we will work on that as we go along in the budget process. So I will not bore you with that detail at this time. The expenditures are currently at 48.4% of the budget. So we're currently in line with what we projected. And last year we were at 47.7%. So we're also in line as far as the projections are concerned. The ending fund balance for our general fund is $32.7 million. And so we're up 8.2% from the prior year in our ending fund balance. And of course, this is all unaudited numbers. And I just want to point that out to our mayor, city council members, and our citizens. The aviation fund, that's our second major fund that we're looking at. Of course, this aviation fund, once again, we do incorporate the regional airport and Skylark, and these are the operations only. We do pull out the grants, so I want to make that real clear. And the revenues currently, the operating revenues are at 39.2% of the current budget. And once again, we can go into detail later on what makes up the revenues. And the expenditures are at 39.8% of the current budget. And so the total ending fund balance for the, once again, unaudited Fort Hood Regional Airport, I do have to break it down to this extent, is down slightly, 6% from prior year. And the ending fund balance for Skylark is down $486,180 from the prior year. So those two are slightly down, and if we did need a little bit more detail, we do have Mr. Sutton here that can give you a little bit more insight on the employments, deployments, and give you that type of information. The solid waste operating revenues, we have we do have revenues that are aligned, and we're doing fairly well with those particular revenues. We are at 50.8% of the total revenues budget, and the expenditures are at 46.8%. And normally that's what we like to see. We don't want to exceed our expenditures. We always try to make sure that we keep those down. And so our ending fund balance there is $3.4 million. That is down 5.6% from prior year. We do have some major breaks on our major equipment out there. It is old, and our fuel cost obviously is going up. So those are some of the things that we watch closely as we all see the economics. And we have met with our city manager on the fuel costs and those kind of things. The water and sewer fund operating revenues, they are up 10.2% at the second quarter from the prior year, and revenues are at 46.5% of the budget, and the expenditures are they are 47.5% of the budget as compared to the prior year, 47.2%. So we're in line there. The ending fund balance, this is the healthiest fund that we do have out there. For the month of March, we do have 21.3%, $21.3 million ending fund balance, and that is up 11% from the previous year. And once again, this is one of the healthiest this is one of our healthiest funds that we do have. The drainage utility fund, once again, we're going to go back to the fact that this particular fund is made up of bond proceeds. It functions a little bit differently than our other major funds. At one point in time, we currently have incorporated into this fund the bond proceeds and the operating funds, so we pull those out, and currently the operating revenues are at 51.6% of the budget, and the expenditures are at 36.7% of the budget. And that particular fund, we're still trying to, and I know that Christina is over our drainage utility fund, and she's doing a fantastic job on really trying to get those projects spent down, because that is a 2006 bond issue that we've been working on, and we have brought bond counsel in to educate all of our division heads, department heads on why it's so important to do arbitrage reasons and IRS reasons as to why it's important to spend down the bond proceeds as soon as possible, so that we don't get we don't get penalized with any type of arbitrage and what have you. So that being said, those are the major funds, and currently with the economics and maintaining our very strict budgets with management, we have been keeping very strict budgets and making sure that everybody watches everything that they spend, and not really being able to budget a whole lot of capital, and just maintaining everything that we have. Last year we did, one of the things that I will point out, we did, our council did approve a fund balance policy. So now the fund balance policy does allow us to have an ending fund balance that ranges from 22% through 25%. And If it was to go below that, then we would make sure that we had a plan that would come before city council if anything went under that. But we watch it very carefully, and our CAFR did state, when we looked at the numbers within our CAFR, we were above that in each one of our major funds, so we're doing fine at this point in time, and everything looks pretty healthy. Any questions on the major funds? All right, the economic indicators. Economic indicators, we do take into consideration, and I say we because it takes a finance team to make sure that we all look at all of this information and take it into consideration whenever we're looking at all the financial data in finance. The city's unemployment rate is one of the criteria that we take into consideration whenever we're working on the budget, whenever we're bringing information to you monthly, quarterly, or what have you. The city's unemployment rate is 8.1%. Texas unemployment rate 7.0%. Bell County unemployment rate 7.3%. And the MSA unemployment rate is 7.1%. And I think we keep hearing the economics of, out there that that it's kind of low, but it's fluctuating. So, we're just, I guess it depends on who's given the report, but we're just keeping our fingers crossed that maybe it's going to get better. So that's how the unemployment rate looks at this point in time. The sales tax revenues, we're a little excited here in Killeen because it sounds like our sales tax is getting better here in Killeen, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that it continues to improve, because that is the second major revenue that we look forward to in our general fund. So we're continuing to watch that very carefully because we rely heavily on that particular revenue. Our aviation fund, once again, enplanements, deplanements, that's where we ask the experts from aviation, Mr. Sutton and Mr. Livingston, and those gentlemen to talk a little bit more about how it looks out there at the airport. But it looks like their payments they have decreased by 10,915 or 11.48% year to date. Deplanements have decreased by 13,522 or 14.15% year to date. The permits, those seem to be, again, this schedule is, it's probably not, that last item there is based on the quarter or through March, but the rest of the data is year to date, so we apologize for that. It's probably skewed just a bit, but that information does show that we've got 88,398,601 permits year to date through March, whereas in 2010-11 you can see the year to date numbers. So we've had values for over 100 million in the last several years. And that is another indicator that we do look at in our utility collection. In utility collections, that's where we don't feel any relief because we continue to bring in more customers every month. And I'm talking to Sherry, she is one of the divisions of finance, and she always has additional customers, and she's always working with additional individuals out there. So we always feel an increase in adding customers and always helping those individuals out there. And we have 43,544 year to date, 2.6% higher than what we did last year in March. And hotel occupancy, we have 7.1% decrease from fiscal year 2010-11, but we are looking forward to see what Resource Professionals Group does for us. They're actually a team that's going to go out there, and we're going to meet with Mrs. Kill to meet with some of our hoteliers, if you will, to get some opting and educating our individuals out there, letting them know what needs to be turned in for hotel purposes, and making sure that the city is benefiting or getting what they should be, and that everything is being turned in accordingly as far as hotel taxes are concerned. So, and now we have the investment earnings, and the investment earnings. Let me grab that real quick. It's over there.
Before we go on to that, are there any questions on the presentation that you've just heard? Any questions? I have some general comments.
Yes, sir.
I think we need to, how long have we been using this format for presenting the financial review on a quarterly basis? How many years?
For a long time, sir.
I'm not sure what the council thinks, but I'm wondering whether or not anybody learned anything from what they just heard about our financial situation. I didn't. Anybody else learn anything? I mean, I don't know what our expectations are for these financial reports that we get on a quarterly basis. But this wasn't particularly informative to me in terms of what the problems are, if any. I think maybe we need to look at having an item where we can discuss what we want to see on the financial report. And I don't want to beat up anybody or any of that kind of thing on this, but what I'm saying is I think that there's a lot of questions that I have when I look at each one of these charts that have not been answered. And I don't want to go through all those now. I think we need to look at, there's some things that we can control and there's some things we can't. There's fixed costs and variable costs. There's a lot of costs we can't do anything about. There's some that we can do something about. You look at the revenue side of the house, for example, in the general fund, you've got 3 different sources of revenue in general. You've got your sales tax, got the real estate taxes, and then you've got the other fees and stuff in general. And looking at this report, the real estate taxes that come in, there's not much we can do about that.
That's right.
And I'm not sure what it indicates. Maybe how well our collection people are doing. That aren't even our people who are collecting the taxes, but when you're looking at sales tax revenue, I think that kind of ought to be, you've got it over here on a separate chart as far as an indicator.
Mm-hmm.
The fees and that kind of stuff aren't set forth in a separate way on the revenue. So maybe this revenue stream needs to be put into 3 different kind of general categories. Would anybody have any comments on that?
I just want to say, being a new council member, I did learn. I think you did a good job, and maybe it's the CPA in you, but it was a lot of good information. I mean, one of the key things that me as a council member want to know is, are we within the budget? And that's important to know. We, as we run the city, need to make sure that we are not spending more than what we have. So, those are good numbers to have. And then also where some of those figures come from. A lot of this stuff in here, for me, is, I can only speak for myself, was fairly new. So I think that, it was informative, Mr. Mayor, for me. So I appreciate that. So with that, I think that as we go along, we'll probably, as the mayor said, probably need more information. But I think for our first day, I don't want to go too deep. Okay.
You did a great job. I've been looking at these reports for about a year, and we've met so you could help me understand these. And from the 10,000-foot view, in the solid waste fund operating expenses, we can see that we're at 46.4% of the expenses that we budgeted for. So that's a good thing. And 1/2 of the year, we have not spent 1/2 of the money. And in 1/2 of the year, we brought in 50.8% of what we were intending in the budget to have for income. So when you look at the solid waste fund operating revenues, we're a little bit ahead in 1/2 a year. And when you look at the expenses, we're 4 points down. So it seems like the expenses in the solid waste fund are being managed. What are we doing that's allowing us to make those savings? And do we need to continue to improve on those ideas? That's the question I get when I look there, that's the next step. But, you know, that's a step for staff to get together and work on and figure out what's working there. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I just want to say I got a lot out of it too, and there's a lot I don't know, but that's why we have you for a professional to do that. I think, I'm like Jose said, I think we'll get to know more about it and have more questions in the future, but it was pretty easy to understand for me tonight.
One of the things that I did want to mention is I have in the past provided the monthly report with the quarterly, but I didn't want to inundate you with too much information, and I can change it accordingly. There are some cities that, and we don't want to committee us to death, I know, but we've never had that here at the city as far as, but that's the city manager, but I'm not saying anything, I apologize, sir. But this is the report that has a lot of that detail that Mayor Corbin was talking about, that breaks it down in more detail. And the only other thing that I was going to mention are policies as far as the, in our comprehensive annual financial report, we do give the guidance in the CAFR as to the types of, in the M&D, which is at the beginning of the CAFR, where we state in that in the management letter type information what we follow, what the guidance is as far as accounting policies, management policies, so forth and so on. We have the same thing in the budget. In the budget, we have the budget summary. And in the budget summary, which is behind the budget summary tab, we have the stated policies which we follow. But I didn't want to go into that kind of detail until, I think that's the kind of detail that Mr. Morrison will be going into on budget, and I didn't want to inundate you with too much, so. But that kind of detail will be provided here in the near future, and it's the management discussion and analysis, excuse me, I don't always remember everything, but the CAFR behind the tab, management discussion analysis, gives you more detail of what types of policies we follow here. And it's explained more thoroughly. And that's in the comprehensive annual financial report, and all that data is, you know, if you really want to get into the detail of what guidelines we go by. And in the budget, behind the tab budget summary, we define the methodology and budgeting process, legal requirements set by Texas budget law, charter, basis of accounting, city council budget directives, administrative budget directives, operating transfers based on franchise fee, indirect cost analysis, etc. All that detail's in there. And in this report is where we break down the detail of what does make up the general analysis, so forth and so on.
Do you give us the quarterly, do you give us those quarterly statements, or?
This is the monthly statement, yes, sir, and we do have it, we can provide this to you, yes, sir.
Do you routinely give those to the council
Yes,
members?
sir, yes, sir.
Okay, and that'll have the, kind of the detail that I'm looking for in some of these things?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Mr. Lauer?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where I was going, but, and that's what I do. As I look at this, it's easier for me. It's not easy. It's easier, because the budget's a complicated thing sometimes. But it's easier for me to look at this and reflect and go back, and everybody will get that report that you just held up. It's easy for me to go back and look at the detailed part of the budget and see where things are happening. So if you did just look at this, it would be absolutely impossible to understand the entire document. But, you know, there is another document that we do get on a monthly basis that you'll be able to reflect on. Thank you.
One question on the permits, on the construction value. When you're looking at the figure of 88 million for this fiscal year, and you're comparing it with the other figures for the prior 3 fiscal years, are those comparisons on just the first 2 quarters?
No, sir.
So the 149 million for the prior year was for the whole year.
Yes,
And now
sir.
we're looking at for the first 6 months here, so we're doing relatively well there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, going to the investments then.